Welcome to the Ringer NFL show. I'm Sheil Kapadia. Earlier this week, we talked about the best coaching jobs of the season through 5 weeks. Well, today, we go the other way. We are identifying the worst coaching performances through 5 weeks. Who are the guys doing less with more? The coaches who are making baffling decisions week after week after week. The coaches who are failing to show that they are capable of giving their teams any kind of edge. And more importantly, what does the future hold for those coaches and those teams? Might some of them turn it around? Are others potentially on the hot seat? So to answer those questions and more, I will be joined by Pat Daugherty of NBC Sports. Every offseason, Pat writes a great column ranking all of the head coaches in the NFL. So he is the perfect person to go over this exercise with me. All right, we'll break it all down right after the break. This is the Ringer NFL show presented by FanDuel. And if you're betting on the NFL, FanDuel's the place to do it. They've got everything. Same game parlays, quick bets for when you want to jump in live, and your way so you can set your own lines. The app's fast, it's easy to use, and best of all, when you win, you get paid out instantly. Download the FanDuel app or go to FanDuel.com/RingerNFL to get started. The Ringer is committed to responsible gaming. Please visit rg-help.com to learn more about the resources and helplines available and listen to the end of the episode for additional details. Must be 21 plus and present in select states and 18 plus in DC, Kentucky, and Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. All right, here with Pat Daugherty from NBC Sports. We're talking worst coaching performances through 5 weeks. Pat, I'm going to get us started because I feel like the top spot here really should be unanimous. And that is Brian Callahan. I think we're on the same page there. I mean, he is 4-18 in his last 22 games, but here's what I love about it. And I don't know, are you aware of his record against the spread, Pat?
No, I'm actually not. Okay. I can take a guess, but I'm not.
Take a guess. Yeah, that'll be fun.
So he's 4-18. The 2-20 against the spread?
He's 4-18 against the spread. Wow. It's the same record. If you would have just bet against Brian Callahan for 2 years, man, you would be living a good life. So listen, I don't want to be too mean to the guy, but let's be honest. He looks completely overmatched at every turn. So some examples here, Pat. Week 1, he doesn't challenge the key no catch call that actually might have changed the result of the game because he didn't know the rule. Week 3, one of my favorite moments of the season. You know, you can have your fancy Justin Herbert throws or whatever. This is the stuff I live for. End of the first half, he can't decide whether to go for it or kick a field goal. Colts call timeout. He still can't decide. So he calls timeout. He still can't decide. He gets the kicking team out there late, and they get called for a delay of game, turning a 57-yard field goal to a 62-yard field goal, which gets blocked. And then the Colts score. I mean, that is incredible. You know, even when I like to make fun of coaches, I can't even make up scenarios like that. So you got that. And then the last one I'll leave you with here. He gives up play calling duties. Week 4, after he gives up play calling duties, they lose 26-0. And Cam Ward says flatly, "Our team is ass," which up there for quote of the year so far in 2025. And then they get the miracle win last year with the Cardinals. So again, I'm not trying to be too mean-spirited here, Pat, but is there anything in this Brian Callahan experience that suggests he is anything other than way, way overmatched with his current job title?
Well, first off, by the way, I wonder what it says about my online persona where people are like, I know who we have to reach out to talk about bad coaching.
Oh, yeah.
Pat Daugherty will know how to bury the bad coaches. And another thing I know, by the way, as a Mizzou fan, a lifelong Mizzou sufferer, I know all about, didn't cover the spread stats. Mizzou used to be the absolute kings of that. We've gotten a lot better. But Brian Callahan, so first off, whatever. He's not working with a full deck of cards in Tennessee. Since the Sean McVay era, quote unquote, has begun, we've seen several guys from the McVay, from the Shanahan trees come in and immediately turn around a team. That should never be the expectation, of course, for the most likely outcome. But it is a possible outcome, we know. And so I feel like even that was a useful data point on Brian Callahan. And year two, he gets a number one overall pick. Again, that's tough too. But things are getting worse. They're not getting better. It says a lot that in a year plus on the job, the most famous, like your signature moment came on a play where your team threw an interception. Like, that really does say a lot. Like, the signature moment of the Brian Callahan era came on a Titans interception.
Dude, that was incredible. His reaction on that was incredible. It was like he won the Super Bowl. Cam Ward throws an interception, the Cardinals fumble it, and Tyler Lockett recovers it. And Callahan's just got arms in the air, and then he's putting up the 1 point. I got this, which I believe they should have gone for 2.
Yes.
Technically, so even he got that wrong.
I know.
I mean, like you said, his
remember
signature moment.
It got blocked. It got blocked. So
we're Brian Callahan. Yeah, it's not going well. You're right. I think there were signs in year one. I mean, him and Will Levis, he looked like that was bad off the bat. He was taking no accountability, which I understand why he was frustrated with Will Levis, of course. But what are the chances that week 1 of 2026, Brian Callahan is the head coach of the Tennessee Titans?
I'd say it's pretty low. Just beyond his performance, the Titans have been a franchise kind of plagued by instability, plagued by power struggles, and there's going to be so many different voices with so many different opinions. I think the idea that they should have a do-over, like bring in a new guy, like fresh slate for Cam Ward, for the whole franchise, I think that will happen. But to your point on game management too, by the way, always bad, but this new school of coaches, like the expectation should be like that they've played Madden growing up, and that they truly understand this minutia of clock management. Before, that was like too low level for someone like Bill Parcells. Like, dude, like I'm here like doing like the big picture, like the big philosophical things. I don't have to worry about the clock. The new coaches, they should have this stuff down cold. To not even have that down cold, and another just really, really bad sign for Brian Callahan.
Or at the very least, they should have listened to podcasts of
Exactly.
people like us ripping coaches for screwing up. They grew up in that culture where it was, hey, this guy is screwing this up badly. He needs to change it. They were part of that culture. They weren't talking about that back with Parcells. All right, sorry, Brian Callahan, but you were a very easy number 1 on this list. All right, number 2 kind of pains me here, Pat, and it's not in exact order, but I was going through and I'm like, who are the guys we have to get to? And that's Pete Carroll, a man I covered for 2 years, a guy I think has had a great career, has been a great coach, but this has been a disaster, Pat. The team is 1-4, the Las Vegas Raiders. I knew coming into the season, the defense might stink. I thought the offense had a chance to be solid. I thought they would play with like a competitive fervor, like there would be some nice vibes on the sideline, and it has been anything but that. Geno Smith, disaster, 9 interceptions. Chip Kelly, terrible. Looks like he did when he was last in the NFL here. And then, Pat, what I did here, I went to the Raiders website to look at the coaching staff. And have you done this anytime recently?
I know. You're control F-ing a certain last name, maybe.
I didn't even have to control F, Pat, because it's literally the second row. Pete Carroll's sons are right there. Brennan Carroll, run game coordinator, offensive line coach. Nate Carroll, assistant QB's coach, game management. The offensive line is a disaster, Pat. The QB is playing the worst football he has in a long time. And so I add all that up, and I just don't know. Do you have hope? Because I believe from reading your annual column, I feel like in the past you have been sort of with me that, hey, Pete Carroll's a really good coach here. Do you have any hope that he can turn this around? Have you been as disappointed as I have with the Pete Carroll experience?
Yeah, Pete Carroll, one of the greatest football coaches in American history. And I do feel comfortable saying by the end of his time in Seattle, and although I agreed that it was probably time for the mutual parting of ways, he probably parted ways with Seattle as somehow an underrated head coach.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is too harsh. He's almost become the NFL analog to Bill Belichick at UNC. And I never expected that for Pete Carroll, because Pete, he's full of humility. He seems to embrace new ideas. He's always hired people outside of his coaching tree. He hired Chip Kelly. Even now, he's comfortable like seeking outside voices. He's comfortable trying new things. And I don't know what has gone so wrong, but like he's in the classic territory where the one thing he could not afford to have happen has happened, because hiring Pete Carroll is supposed to be about at least establishing a baseline. Like the Raiders aren't going to be a laughingstock. They're not going to be a joke anymore. And the bottom's not going to fall out. And instead, they're establishing like yet another new floor in Vegas. Like just the one thing that you didn't think was going to happen that you really couldn't let happen. And offense in particular, it's almost like, who's calling? Is it Pete Carroll's offense? Is it Chip Kelly's offense? Is it Geno Smith's offense? There's this kind of like almost like a sense of a power vacuum, and that maybe a guy, he didn't want to retire, but Pete seems with it. I'm not saying that, but it just seems like maybe a guy who should have retired. Like, just let it be. Like, it wasn't the ending he had hoped for in Seattle, and two, like, maybe he's a guy where it takes 5 years to establish your program. It took 3 years for him in Seattle. They're not going to give him 3 years, especially at his age. That's not right. But it's not going to happen. And it's looking like a far bigger disaster than I ever thought possible.
Yeah, the whole point was that, hey, you're trading for Geno Smith. You bring in Pete Carroll, like you said. It's not necessarily about winning a Super Bowl. It's like, let's be a fun, competitive team right away. And it's been anything but that. Yeah, I remember that clip that went viral, or I don't know if it went viral, but it was circulating before the season of him like teaching the class, and someone asked him about the dip. And I'm like, all right, he's got it. I'm like, he's coming in. The players are going to love this. And yet somehow, now they've had injuries. I understand Brock Bowers, offensive line, but you look at it, special teams has been a disaster. That's always like the coach. I always
too,
look
by
at
the
that.
way, Sheil, like, is there some reason, the one thing I'll really criticize about Pete, why ever does he never have a good offensive line? Like, I don't quite understand. Like his philosophy seems to really underrate line play. And boy, is that a massive, massive problem for the Raiders.
It shouldn't. He's always like, we're going to run the football, explosive plays type thing. It really shouldn't. But yeah, it's been bad. I'm mostly out. But I'm leaving the door, like, because just when you were talking, the Belichick comparison, you really hurt my feelings with that one.
That hurt me saying that.
I know. I cannot get there yet with Pete Carroll. So I am leaving the door a little bit open, that he has been a problem solver. His whole thing is fight through adversity. You got to go through some of the bad stuff to get to the good stuff. I've heard him speak for hours about this. I don't have a solution, how he's going to fix it. But I want to believe that it's not going to be this bad the rest of the way. And hey, they're 5.5-point favorites this weekend, because do you know who they're facing, Pat?
I have forgotten, to be honest, already. You're going to have to tell me.
The Tennessee Titans and Brian Callahan.
Of course,
so come on, Pete. It's a get-right game. Come on, Pete. Get back in there. All right, let's take a break. We come back. We got a couple more names we got to get to here. The Ringer NFL show is brought to you by FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is your home for all your favorite NFL bets, from yards to touchdowns to who will win. With FanDuel, any play can be the play of the game. And when the Eagles and Giants play Thursday night, FanDuel is giving all customers a 50% PBT. Visit FanDuel.com/RingerNFL to bet the Eagles versus the Giants with a 50% PBT. Play your game with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. All right, we're back on the Ringer NFL show. Next up, I guess if you have the only winless team in the NFL, Pat, you got to be on the list here. And that's Aaron Glenn. The Jets are having the jetsiest of all Jets seasons. I mean, you look at some of the advanced stats and I can be like, they're moving the ball. Now, I know there's some garbage time in there, but it's like they're moving the ball. Their O-line's been okay. They can run the ball. Justin Fields is actually, I think, playing the best football of his career. And I don't know that it's, that close. Now, it's not the highest bar, I understand, but like they're getting what they thought they were paying for in Justin Fields. And yet they're still 0-5. They're the only team in the last 10 years to not have a takeaway in the first 5 weeks of the season. Like, that's usually the ball just bounces to you, or, someone slips or something. That has not happened for the Jets. And really Aaron Glenn's best moment, you talked about Callahan's best moment was the fluky interception fall. For Glenn, it was dancing on the sidelines after the Tampa Bay Bucks. That game, they blocked the kick and everyone's putting the music to it. Other than that, though, there's been nothing to celebrate here, Pat, with Aaron Glenn. I was hoping for more in his first season there.
I mean, even tougher for Glenn. I mean, the Titans at least did win that game where they threw the pick and then got the touchdown. The Jets did not even win that game. And by the way, Justin Fields, There was a garbage time golden age about 10 years ago where like Eli Manning, the years the Saints were bad of Drew Brees, like in fantasy football, you could just rely
Kirk
on
Cousins
garbage time.
in there a little bit, right?
And that just kind of disappeared. The defenses are so sophisticated. They don't sit back the way they used to, but Justin Fields is trying to bring it back.
Oh, I like that.
And we commend him for that. Glenn is in a similar situation to Pete Carroll in that the one thing that couldn't happen is kind of happening, where no one had super high offensive expectations for the New York Jets. Like, you look at the skill core, it's almost a one-man band. Like, it's Garrett Wilson. We don't even know who the number 2 pass catcher was supposed to be coming into the season. It looks like it might be Mason Taylor now. So some people emerging, but the expectations for the offense were like vanishingly low. And Aaron Glenn was at least supposed to keep a respectable defense, maybe even make it better, turn games kind of into rock fights, turn them into slogs. And you were talking about advanced stats earlier, just talk about a boomer stat. For the past 3 years, I think the Jets, all 3 years were in the bottom 5 in terms of yards against. Like, they say what you will about the Jets, they didn't give up a ton of yards on defense. Like, that's all just gone the exact wrong direction.
Yeah.
The defense has fallen apart. Maybe it's just growing pains. The first-time coach, it's only 5 games. It's a small sample size, even in the NFL. But that's the concerning part for Aaron Glenn, because the offense wasn't going to be good. The media in New York, it's always a crucible. I'm not surprised. That's kind of been rocky. He's trying to do like the Belichick thing, giving like real short, curt answers. Like, maybe wouldn't do that, but not surprised that's rocky. The defense wasn't supposed to be rocky, and the defense is rocky. That is what is concerning for Aaron Glenn.
Especially coming off of last year where the Lions were just the most injured defense in the NFL, and they still kind of held up well. Now, not all the way through, but for a lot of the season, you're like, man, how are they doing this? Who are these guys playing? They lost Aiden Hutchinson. They lost all those guys, and he still held it together. And now you're right. I mean, you watch this defense, and it's like, it looks like one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I think they're probably benefiting from some garbage time stuff too. Other team running the football in the fourth quarter there. The vibes also I don't like. He got that NFLPA survey thing that comes out every year. Like, he got rated like the guy that players wanted to play for the most or something. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's a good thing to have as a head coach. And now it's just like, they seem miserable. And it's only been 5 weeks, guys. Like, you got 13 weeks to get through here. Now they go to London, Pat. They got to take on the Broncos.
I feel like it's like become a new cardinal rule of the NFL. Like, at your lowest moment, you will be sent back to the old country. You will be sent to England, the old continent. You're going back to Europe somehow.
We're done with you. Yeah. We cannot watch you play football on American soil anymore. Get over there. Take the flight. Yeah, it's and I know Jets fans, and I do feel for Jets fans. I feel like they just don't want. I do. Yeah, I like a Jets fan because Jets fans, they just don't want to be embarrassed. It's a different bar than I think any other fan base in the NFL, where teams are like, we want to win the Super Bowl. We want to get to the playoffs. We'd love to have a winning record. They're like, don't embarrass us. It's like a family member or something that they're stuck with. And they're just like, please, my friends are coming over. Don't do that weird voice. Like, that's what the Jets are. And now it's they hate these standalone games. I know Jets fans hate this when they're on. They don't want any national TV games. And now it's like Sunday morning against Sean Payton. Like, is it just going to be LOL Jets by everyone all morning? I hope not, Jets fan. Don't embarrass. Come on, football gods. Give them something. Give them one thing, like a 23-16 loss or something.
Let's start small. 23-16 loss sounds. I think that covers the spread too. So lose with dignity. Come back to America. Too. Maybe maybe just the New York market. Everyone knows it's hard. Maybe it's just even harder than he expected. He can reset after London and start building anew.
There you go. All right. Last guy that has to be on this list. He's been in the news this week. Jonathan Gannon. Pat, now I don't like to punch people when they're down. I would rather punch the guy, who's up. And that's what I had been doing to the Cardinals in the preseason, when I'm like, why does anyone like this team? Why are they overrated? They've got great PR. And so I went after him then. Now Gannon's in some trouble. And just overall, they're 14-25 in 3 seasons with him. He was called a defensive guru on a recent national broadcast, where if you look at it, they're 32nd in defensive success rate since he became the head coach. His game management cost them last year. He turtles at times, even in that Titans game. I know they did a million dumb things, but 2:12 left, 3rd and 8. You're up by 2 points. Like, the other team only needs a field goal. you don't want to just give them the ball and say, try to kick a field goal, and they run the football there. So that was bad. But the story everyone's talking about this week is about his kind of leadership and his, what he did after DeMercado had that loss, got rid of the ball before the goal line, loses a touchdown, flips the game. And then there's that video on the sideline, goes viral of Gannon kind of laying into him there. And he gets fined $100,000 by the Arizona Cardinals. And a lot of people have been talking about this week. Like the takes have been flying with this, Pat. Like it's everything from Jonathan Gannon should go to jail to America has become soft. I feel like those are the two extremes. And there are a lot of takes in between here. What did you think of that? He did apologize the next day. He said he apologized to the team. What did you make of that whole situation and kind of the takes that are flying right now with Jonathan Gannon?
Well, I think one reason it's going particularly poorly for him is this might be too long of an anecdote, but I've been watching the Jerry Jones Netflix infomercial on the Cowboys dynasty. It's really good. I hate to admit it. It's really, really good. And in that documentary, Jimmy Johnson, like multiple times, like poking players' chests, like getting in their face.
Yeah.
But they put up with it with Jimmy because they knew he was a leader. They knew he was a winner, whatever winner means. And it was genuine with Jimmy. I think the problem with Jonathan Gannon, and you were an Eagles guy, you might know more about Jonathan Gannon than I do, but it just felt like I've never even seen Jonathan Gannon display emotion before. And then it just seemed like really forced, like this guy who stands there stoic like a statue. Really the only time he's entered the NFL mind space that's even got the Cardinals job was his like real awkward press conference. And I think that is maybe what really hurt Gannon and probably why he had to apologize, pay this fine to the team, like why they didn't just let it roll off their backs, so that it just seems like forced, like a put on, like a try hard, whatever you want to call it, where he made a bad moment even worse just by like doing something like no one bought, no one agreed with. I could be totally wrong on that, but I feel like that's particularly why this has gone wrong with Jonathan Gannon. It's like, dude, like we don't even, like, where's this been? Like, it would have been nice to maybe have some fiery leadership, last year. And I think that's what has really hurt him here, is that it just, in addition to being wrong, like, say whatever you want. Like, we just know you can't do that now. Probably should have never done that. Yeah. It just felt like, it's like, where did this even come from? I just don't think people were buying that, particularly the players, from Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah, I don't want to judge a guy by like one bad moment. And I think he sounded sincere in his apology. But with stuff like this, I always like listening to the players, like former players. Even remember the Anthony Richardson thing last year when he came out of the game? I was like, I'm just a kid from the Philly suburbs. It doesn't seem that bad. He was tired. And then the players are like, you cannot do that in an NFL game. And so I'm like, all right, what are the former players saying about this? Because the football culture, like I said, is different than like the podcast culture. I can't just be jabbing someone, or I wouldn't even think to do that. But there are things in football that are accepted more than in real life. And it feels like most of the former players I've seen talk about it are like, nope, that's out of line. Like, you're supposed to be a leader. You're supposed to be the calming voice. It's okay to get after players. It's okay to chew them out. But it sort of felt like that moment showed a lack of, I don't know if it's emotional intelligence or what, but it's like, he almost, it's funny. I think we have different, you thought he was being like a tryhard. I almost thought he was acting like a fan, like he couldn't process what had happened. Yeah. And he couldn't get to the point of like, I'm the leader. What's the best way to handle this? He was just like reacting like, how could you do that? And
which to be fair, how could you do that?
Right. Yeah. So I think everyone's on board with like, you can chew the guy out, but I heard Dominique Foxworth talking about it, and he was like, you can do things that are allowed to be like done back to you. So you can like curse him out because he can curse you out. Yeah, he's like, if it's a player and a player, you can get into a physical altercation because like you're allowed to punch back. He's like, when it's authority like that, like DeMercado can't like, shove him back. I mean, I guess he could, but I'm sure in his head, he's thinking like, I can't do that right now. So it's a tricky situation. I think he was clearly in the wrong. And I think, to your point, like, they haven't had a lot of success. They've been a losing team. Again, 14-25. So now they're 2-3. They're plus 680 to make the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs, that's 3 straight years without making the playoffs for Jonathan Gannon. And I just do wonder, like, I think there's a chance. I think we're going to learn a lot about kind of how the team plays and how they respond in the next couple of weeks here.
And just, I mean, this is now or never time for Jonathan Gannon, because like you said, he's a defensive guy where the defense has not leveled up. And that is, as the offense has remained stuck in neutral, identity crisis, kind of just repeat TV from Kyler Murray. Yeah. Even now, the same thing with Marvin Harrison Jr. is just kind of doing over his like very mixed rookie season. And it's like, if you're not doing that, if you're not managing the game well as you laid out, kind of a classic, like, what would you say you do here? And maybe it's time for someone else to have a crack at it.
That's a theme with all these coaches. What is it exactly that you do here? All right. The other names I wrote down real quick here. Mike McDaniel, they stink. John Harbaugh, do you just chalk it up to injuries? I know he's under some heat. Kellen Moore, I just wanted to call out that his in-game decision-making I think he's done an okay job overall, but the decisions he needs some help with that because he may be the worst in the league right now. Brian Daboll, they're 1-4, and he seems to always get a pass. I know you had him low on your rankings for NBC Sports, which I was happy to see. And then Zach Taylor, I know Burrow's out, but they look like the worst team in the NFL. Is there one guy there that you say he really deserves to have a case on this list?
Mike McDaniel is probably I will say Mike McDaniel, they've rallied a little more than I expected. But Mike McDaniel just seems like the classic offensive coordinator trapped in a head coach's body. And maybe the Dolphins are a dysfunctional franchise. This was a big take on for anybody, but that I think they need to start fresh. Harbaugh, I just wonder if he's almost to the Pete Carroll point where, listen, you're a great coach. We could probably call you one of the best coaches in American history too. At this point, Pete, level higher since he even did it in college. But to lose a lot of big games, you have to constantly be playing in big games. How many more big games can the Ravens lose? And just the vibes there are taking a turn. He's had such good success hiring coordinators. Now maybe they don't have the right defensive coordinator. Or John Harbaugh I feel like he might need to change his scenery. I talked about all the time with Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin might need to change his scenery. I think you could almost make the same argument with John Harbaugh that he might need to change his scenery at this point.
I hadn't thought of it before, but it reminds me of Andy Reid's sort of final years.
No, absolutely.
With the Eagles, and that was Harbaugh's mentor. He was on a lot of those staffs. So there you go. The worst coaching performances so far through the first 5 weeks of the NFL season. Pat Daugherty, he's the only person I could call on for this exercise. The perfect guest. You can check him out at NBC Sports. I'll be right back with the Hurry Up. All right, the Hurry Up is our closing segment where I give you a take on news in the NFL. And we've got a football game tonight. Eagles go to New York to take on the Giants. This feels like a sneaky big spot for both teams. So the Eagles are big favorites, but they've looked rather unsettled, I think we could say, specifically on offense, despite the 4-1 record. Their run game has not been nearly as dynamic as it was last year. Saquon Barkley's longest run of the season is 17 yards. I think this could be a get-right game for him, a big game for him. The Giants are vulnerable against the run. But man, if the Eagles lose this game, again, they're 7.5-point favorites. I think they'll be in the running for one of the most miserable 4-2 teams in recent NFL history. It will be a long 10 days in Philadelphia between this game and their next game if they end up losing here to the Giants. And then from the Giants' perspective, we've talked about how the rest of this season is about Brian Daboll winning the narrative on Jackson Dart. They won Dart's first game. Last week, they turned the ball over on 5 straight possessions. I don't know how many people were tuned into that Giants-Saints game last week, but this is different. This is a standalone game, and owners don't like to be embarrassed on national TV, specifically an owner who we know did not want to get rid of Saquon Barkley and did not want him to sign with the Eagles in the first place. So this is just another data point for Daboll. They don't necessarily have to win, but can they look like a competitive, professional operation? Is there excitement about how Dart plays? I think those types of things are going to matter in this game and the rest of the way. So just some things to watch in Eagles-Giants on Thursday night. All right, appreciate everyone listening. Thanks to Christopher Sutton for producing, Kiera Givens on social, additional production supervision by Connor Nevins and Arjuna Ramgopal. We'll be back tomorrow on the Ringer NFL Show. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.